In the early days of September 1666, London was a titan among European cities. It was one of the largest, wealthiest, and most powerful urban centers on the continent. Its streets, though narrow and crowded, bustled with life. Its timber-framed houses, stacked tightly one against the other, created a skyline that spoke of prosperity and power. From the outside, London looked like an unshakable empire. But beneath this vibrant facade, the city was a tinderbox, a vast, sprawling pile of wood just waiting for a single spark to set it ablaze. That spark would come not from an invading army or a political conspiracy, but from a small, unassuming bakery on Pudding Lane. The baker's name was Thomas Fariner, a man whose simple mistake would etch his name into history forever. In the dead of night, on September 2nd, after a long day of work, Fariner went to bed. He believed he had properly put out the fire in his oven. He was wrong. In the quiet early morning hours, a few stray embers ignited, and flames began to lick at the dry wood of his shop. At first it was just a small fire confined to the bakery, but a strong easterly wind was blowing off the River Thames. The wind caught the embers, carrying them like fiery messengers from one rooftop to the next. Within hours, the fate of London was sealed. The fire was no longer just a fire. It was a monster, and it was hungry. You have to understand what London was like back then. There was no organized fire department, no high-pressure hoses, no real system for fighting a blaze of this scale. The city's very design was its own worst enemy. Houses were built almost entirely of wood, and their roofs were coated with flammable tar to keep the rain out. The streets were incredibly narrow, some so tight that you could reach out a window and shake hands with your neighbor across the way. This medieval layout, which gave the city its character, now became a death trap. The flames leaped effortlessly from one building to the next, racing through the city's labyrinthine alleys with terrifying speed. Initially, the citizens of London weren't overly concerned. Fires were a common occurrence in a city built of wood. "It's just another fire," people likely muttered as they were woken by the distant glow. "It will be put out by morning." Even the authorities were slow to grasp the magnitude of the threat. The Lord Mayor, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, was woken and brought to the scene. When it was suggested he order the demolition of nearby houses to create a firebreak, he hesitated. Those houses belonged to wealthy, influential citizens. Demolishing private property without a very good reason was a risky political move. That hesitation, that single moment of indecision, would cost London everything. As the authorities debated, the wind grew stronger, fanning the flames into a ferocious firestorm. The blaze developed its own weather system, creating a whirlwind of superheated air that sucked in oxygen and propelled the inferno forward. The fire was now completely out of control. It devoured entire districts in a matter of hours. The great marketplaces, the centers of London's commerce, collapsed into heaps of ash. The Royal Exchange, the guild halls, the prisons, all were consumed. Then the unthinkable happened. The fire reached St. Paul's Cathedral. For centuries, this magnificent stone structure had been the spiritual heart of London, a symbol of the city's endurance and faith. People believed it was fireproof. They crowded into its courtyards, storing their most precious belongings inside the church for safekeeping. But the cathedral's roof was made of lead, supported by massive wooden scaffolding. The intense heat of the firestorm melted the lead, which poured down the streets in molten rivers. The wooden beams caught fire, and the great cathedral was transformed into a furnace. Witnesses described the sound of its massive stones exploding like grenades in the heat. The symbol of London was being swallowed whole by the flames. Panic finally gripped the city. The illusion of safety was shattered. People abandoned their homes, their possessions, their entire lives, and fled in terror. The banks of the River Thames became a chaotic sea of refugees, a desperate mass of humanity trying to escape the burning city. Some frantically loaded their belongings onto boats, while others simply threw their treasures into the river, hoping to retrieve them later. In the chaos, families were separated, children were lost, the air filled with smoke, ash, and the screams of the displaced. The Great Fire of London burned relentlessly for 4 long days and nights. When the wind finally died down and the flames subsided, the city was almost unrecognizable. London was a smoking ruin. The scale of the destruction was apocalyptic. Nearly 80% of the walled city had been annihilated. Over 13,000 houses were gone. 87 parish churches lay in ashes. Tens of thousands of people were left homeless, camping in the fields outside the city walls with nothing but the clothes on their backs. And yet, amidst this biblical devastation, there was a strange and enduring mystery. According to the official records, only 6 people died in the fire. 6. This number has puzzled historians for centuries. How could a fire of this magnitude, which destroyed a city of 500,000 people, kill so few? The truth is, the official toll was almost certainly a fiction. It didn't account for the poor, the elderly, the sick, or the undocumented immigrants who lived in the city's crowded slums. Their deaths went unrecorded, their bodies likely incinerated beyond recognition. The true death toll was undoubtedly much, much higher, lost to the flames of history. As the smoke cleared, a new crisis emerged. The people of London were angry. They were homeless, destitute, and they wanted someone to blame. In times of crisis, fear often turns to hatred. Suspicion immediately fell on foreigners. England was at war with the Dutch and the French, and rumors spread like wildfire that the blaze was an act of sabotage, a Catholic plot to destroy the Protestant capital. Lynch mobs roamed the smoldering streets, attacking anyone who looked or sounded foreign. The social fabric of the nation was tearing apart. England stood on the brink of civil war, a conflict born from the ashes of its own capital. But then, in the midst of this chaos, something remarkable happened. King Charles II, a monarch who had already survived civil war and exile, did not see the fire as just a disaster. He saw it as an opportunity, a chance to start again. He declared that London would be rebuilt, but it would not be the same London. It would be better, stronger, safer. A new vision for the city was born. The old, narrow streets would be widened into broad avenues. Wooden houses would be banned, replaced by buildings of brick and stone. For the first time, a city would be designed with fire safety in mind. The London we know today, with its grand architecture and more orderly layout, rose directly from the ashes of 1666. The Great Fire spurred the creation of Europe's first modern urban planning codes and fire regulations. It led to the development of property insurance and the establishment of the world's first organized fire brigades. The disaster forced society to innovate, to create systems to protect itself from future catastrophes. But perhaps the most profound and unexpected consequence of the fire was also the most silent. Just 1 year before the fire, in 1665, London had endured the Great Plague, one of the deadliest epidemics in its history. The bubonic plague had killed nearly a quarter of the city's population. It spread through the filth of the overcrowded streets, carried by fleas living on the city's massive rat population. The Great Fire, in its indiscriminate destruction, accomplished what no doctor or public official could. It acted as a gigantic city-wide sterilization. The flames burned away the squalid slums, the garbage-filled alleyways, and the rat-infested hovels that had been the breeding grounds for the disease. It incinerated the very ecosystem that allowed the plague to thrive. And after the fire, the Great Plague of London never returned. In a tragic, unforeseen twist of fate, the fire that destroyed the city also saved it from a disease that had haunted it for centuries. Today, as you walk the streets of modern London, you are walking on layers of history. Beneath the stone buildings and wide boulevards lie the ghosts of a city that burned. The Great Fire of London is a powerful reminder that catastrophe can come not from a foreign enemy, but from our own oversight, our own complacency. It teaches us that sometimes the very disaster that brings an empire to its knees can also be the force that sparks its rebirth. The fire that destroys a world can be the same fire that illuminates its future. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into the past.